Yeah.
to come out from Nigeria because our customs, our build, everything about us differs from the northern people. That's it. And if you go to Aguleri, Anambra State, Aguleri in Anambra State, Anam West and Anam East, there you find some relics that proves that part of the whole part, the southern states of Nigeria, especially the Igbo area, they are the part of the lost tribe of Israel.
Wow.
So it is there, it's documented.
Yeah.
So all these things that makes Nigeria what it is today is just a collection of many tribes, many people. Like our build, if you see our structural building or our appearances, it differs from the north.
Yeah. It
And the way we
definitely
eat, the way we talk, our customs, and the way we dress,
Yeah.
our religion differs from them. So that's the only thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anything you want to say to the brothers and sisters in America, Jamaica, England?
I would because our kings and kings are there.
Yes.
They are
Kings
scattered
and kings
there.
are there.
The only message I would like to give now is that let them not forget their kings and kings that are here suffering under the Sudanese people who came to Nigeria. For instance, in Nigeria, like in America, in Ethiopia, you know, a tribe that was found within Eritrea. They are the lost tribe of Israel.
Yeah.
The Israelites came and removed their brothers and sisters and then quartered them in a separate place. And then reoriented them according to their custom, according to Jewish custom. So our brothers in America, brothers in Jamaica, brothers in America, see America, I know that America is made up of many countries.
Yeah.
Like the late Kennedy, President Kennedy is from Northern Ireland.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they are there. Let them come and help our relations here by supporting us, not by violence, but at least the United Nations has the right to come and conduct plebiscite for us to be free from this yoke.
Thank you so much, Elder. Thank you. Shalom.
Nigeria is just a name that the British threw onto the amalgamation of a bunch of different tribes there that destabilized the region and led to a genocide and a Holocaust of the Igbo people. Where in the 1960s, millions of them were systematically killed and murdered.
Yeah, he told me about that too, but I was running late.
And so it's so this is so relevant because we have such a never again Holocaust theme, but these people had it. But what is mind-boggling to me, which I can't imagine why this is not in the news and not spoken about, is that a large chunk, more than a fourth of the transatlantic slave trade came specifically from this one tribe. So how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute, so the tribe in Africa that the government of Israel is fascinated with and enamored by is now the blood of those people flowing through the African-American community here, which would make sense to me why they're all being like, we have an Israelite affinity, where we're identifying, this is us, we are this. And so I'm like, so yeah, if the DNA of the blood of these people are in them, they have a valid claim to feel and say that.
Shalom, Ka'ala Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Ruach, which are the true names of the Most High Father, Yahweh, which is Hebrew for He is, and His only begotten Son, Yahushai, which is Hebrew for He is salvation, He delivers. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, who are the house of David reborn again in this generation. And shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. So in today's lesson, we're going to talk about the tribe of Benjamin and how today the tribe of Benjamin is made up of the peoples of the West Indies. This would include the so-called Jamaican, the people from the Virgin Islands, Angola, St. Kitts, Nevis, Antigua, Barbados, Montserrat, Dominica, Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, all these different islands, okay? These are the people who descend from Jacob's second wife, Rachel, which you see her right here. Rachel was known as being our forefather Jacob's loved wife. Remember, in the Bible it tells us that our forefather Jacob, he had labored for his father-in-law, Laban, for 7 years, thinking that he was going to be able to marry Rachel originally, right? But, Laban got, pulled a quick one on our forefather and basically gave him Leah. Okay, well, Jacob, he labored an additional 7 years so that he could marry Rachel. And from Rachel comes Joseph. And from Joseph came Manasseh and Ephraim. But Joseph had a brother, a younger brother, and his name was Benjamin. Okay, Benjamin is where the West Indians come from. Okay, and that's who we're talking about today. And from the videos we just watched, you've seen that elder from the Igbo tribe basically, explain that, they are the Israelites, and they, along with a lot of other so-called Negroes, basically Israelites that were living on the west coast of Africa, got taken to the Americas and to, basically the South Americas over in the Indies. And that's who we're focusing on today, are the Israelites who landed within the West Indian Islands. Okay, because you're going to find out these so-called West Indians are in fact, the Hebrew Israelites, namely of the tribe of Benjamin. Now again, the way the slave trade happened, you had a lot of, mixing. So again, I'm not saying everybody in the West Indian Islands are de facto of the tribe of Benjamin. Remember, there's a lot of mixing amongst the tribes, but because of the prophecies, this is how we pinpointed which people are which tribes. Okay, and what I'm talking about is the prophecies that were given by our forefather Jacob at the end of his life. You see, it tells us in the end of Genesis that our forefather Jacob, when he had reached the end of his life and he knew he was going to move on to glory, he gathered his 12 sons, right, along with the sons of Joseph, right, and he had blessed them all. And in blessing them, he also gave a small, quick prophecy. Now, some of the brothers did not get very detailed prophecy. It was very vague, but from those prophecies, we're able to gather, who those people are today. Okay, now Benjamin's prophecy given to him by our forefather Jacob was this. This is Genesis 49 and 27. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf, and in the morning shall devour the prey, and at night shall divide the spoil. So in this case here, it's not so descriptive, but from history we do understand that the West Indian, slaves, right, which again, were brought over here from the west coast of Africa, they tended to be very troublesome for the slave owners, right? These Edomites that had basically rolled over them, right? In fact, you had a lot of revolts there amongst the Benjamites, right? So, for example, here's a drawing of the revolts there on the Jamaican Islands, and not only there, but you also had revolts over on the Haiti island, Haiti being the tribe of Levi, but we'll get into that later on, right? There's here's some other images, right? The Atan U.S., and I can't read it, but basically these are, it says, Jamaican insurrection depicts a scene from the Morant Bay Rebellion in 1865. So there's that. And this, here's another, this one says, Benjamin Watson History and Nation Building, right? That's what the thing says. But the point being is that there was a lot of revolts amongst the West Indians and the slave plantations down there, okay? And a lot of them won their freedom, but because of the way Esau works, he's still able till today to basically enslave these people, but through very deceptive means, through taxations and basically embargoes, things like that. But the point being is that in that prophecy, it tells you that Benjamin would be a ravening wolf, and in the morning he would devour the prey. Meaning, the morning is it goes into like his early life, right? And when you get into Benjamin, just like many other tribes, they were a very strong and warrior-like nation. Okay, even till today, a lot of the brothers that come from the West Indies, they're very strong brothers, right? You could tell that they got that warrior spirit on them. And then later on, like it says, at night, they're going to divide the spoil. And what is the spoil? The spoil is going to be the world kingdom that is going to be given on to the Israelites. Okay, Benjamin is included in that in that blessing to be part of the rulers of the world. Okay, because again, when you look back at Israel, every nation of the 12 tribes of Israel was given their portion. And Benjamin, he was down here in the south. Let's zoom in. He's right here. Judah is here in the south, and Benjamin is a small orange sliver right above the Dead Sea. Now, what happened in our history, when you look at the Bible timeline, our nation, we stayed together for a while, but unfortunately, due to the downfall of our leaders, King David and then King Solomon, the nation was divided. It was split into two, from the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom basically consisted of the Latinos and Native Americans, and the southern kingdom consisted of the so-called Negroes. This basically encompassed three tribes. You had the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, which were already in the south. And then you also had the tribe of Levi, which had been living amongst all the other nations in their territorial areas. But when the divide came, the northern kingdom, Jeroboam, fearing that the northern kingdom tribes would basically go down south and stay down south to go to the temple and basically be persuaded by the Levite priests that lived amongst them, kicked the Levite priest out of all the northern kingdom lands and basically pushed them down to the southern kingdom. Now, this ultimately was the will of the Lord to put Levi with the southern kingdom brothers. Okay, and that's because the southern kingdom brothers were the more righteous of all the tribes. The northern kingdom brothers, we were going off, right? None of our kings were righteous, and this is why we got kicked out of the land in 722. Yeah, 722 BC. The northern kingdom got kicked out, but not too far behind us, the southern kingdom followed suit, and they got kicked out in 597 to 586. It was a progressive expulsion that the Babylonians did, right? They went in, first took like the nobles, the princes, all the people of renown out of the southern kingdom and took them to Babylon, and pretty much just left the lower classes in the southern kingdom of Judah. And then eventually they took everybody. Okay, now they stayed there for a while until Babylon was taken over by the Persians. Okay, and this is where you hear about the story of from Daniel's 5:31, which took place in 539 BC. The Persian king Cyrus, then Darius, came and ultimately free the Israelites from Babylon. Now, ultimately, they conquered Babylon, and in doing so, they freed the southern kingdom of Israel. And when they did that, the kings of Persia understood that they were given a spiritual job to allow the Israelites to go back into their nation, into their country, to rebuild the temple, right? And also, this is where you hear about Second Ezra, right? Because this is Ezra the prophet. He was leading the southern kingdom back to the land of Jerusalem from Babylon. Well, eventually, it goes all the way down to the book of Nehemiah, where Nehemiah he basically starts to rebuild the temple, right? And rebuild the walls. And then from there, that's where we get the end of ancient history. This is pretty much where the Esau's history kind of comes in, right? This is kind of like where the Bible history, for the most part, ends, predominantly. And then after that, this is where history that we're taught here in America, in schools and whatnot, colleges, they're taught, right? You're taught the histories by Herodotus, right? And this is because this is when Edom, the so-called Caucasians, came into power. They became the new Greeks. They took over the Japhites, the original Greeks. You had Alexander, the Macedonian, come onto the scene, and they eventually came in and conquered Judea. But again, this is a whole other lesson. The point being is we're focusing right now on Benjamin. Now, Benjamin, after being in the southern kingdom of Jerusalem, along with the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Levi, they were on the scene when the Romans came on, and also the New Testament came in, the Messiah came on the scene. Now, that being said, we all know about the events that took place during the New Testament. Okay, how all the southern kingdom were together, and with history, let's get back to the Bible timeline. With history, what eventually ended up happening is that prophecy ended up playing out, right? Like I said, you had the Herod dynasty came and infiltrated the southern kingdom leadership. This is basically when the Edomites took over. They started, to claim that they were the, Jews. Then you had John the Baptist come on, and Yahushua was born. John the Baptist started his ministry. Then Yahushua started his ministry. Then all the events of the New Testament took place, right? From the Last Supper to the crucifixion, the resurrections, the teaching of the apostles, and then ultimately the going out, and the Great Commission had started, right? And then you get Paul being converted, and then here is the point I wanted to get to. Okay, in 70 AD, the Romans had enough of the southern kingdom, and because after 40 years since the Messiah was crucified, there was nothing but rebellion, and it was just more trouble to Rome than Jerusalem was worth. And ultimately, this is where Vespasian and Titus put an end to the Israelite state of Jerusalem. Okay, and it stayed ultimately desolate for 200 years before they allowed Israelites to come back into the land to at least see. And we have an historic account from this book called From Babylon to Timbuktu, which states what happened to the Israelites during this time in 70 AD when the Romans destroyed Jerusalem. Well, let's go and read that real quick. This is page 84 of From Babylon to Timbuktu. It says, in the year 65 BC, the Romans army under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state. Really, it's an Israelite state, or the Judite state, with great slaughter during the period of the military governors of Palestine. Many outrageous outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. You see that? So that right there tells you what took place to the southern kingdom of Israel. So a lot of them went into slavery in Rome, and this is why we say that a little bit over 100 years later, right, around 200 to 400 AD, Judah, or should I say the southern kingdom that was in Rome as slaves, they eventually started to come up by winning their freedoms, joining the army, buying their freedom. Because remember, in Rome you could buy yourself, right? You could buy yourself out of slavery if you made enough money, and that's ultimately what Judah did. And they eventually took over Rome, and this is where Rome converted from a pantheon of God worship, right, to a single God worship. They established the Vatican, and they basically changed the ways of Rome around to where it was uncomfortable for the Edomites. And Edom, like they always do, they had white flight, and they basically flew up to the Caucasus Mountains. But this isn't about Edom. Let's get back to the southern kingdom of Israel. Now, like it said, 1 million Jews fled into Africa. Now, where did these Israelites go? Well, let's take a look. They went to the west coast of Africa, okay? From Senegal all the way down to Angola, and really they kind of went all over. They came over here to Ethiopia. They even went down there into the Arabia Peninsula, right? But mostly they settled on the west coast of Africa, and they stayed there for about 1,500 years until the North Atlantic slave trade came about. And what happened is a lot of them came or were taken, not all of them, but a lot of them. I think it's estimated that 15 million enslaved. It says between 1650 and 1860, approximately 10 to 15 million enslaved people were transported from Western Africa to the Americas. Most were shipped to the West Indies, Central America, and South America. Okay? And right now, like I said, we're focusing on the West Indies because that's predominantly where the tribe of Benjamin were taken to. Okay? And the thing is when you look at where they came from, a lot of them came from the Congo and Angola, right? I think a lot of the slaves that came from Angola were taken to Barbados, right? So all this here didn't just happen by chance, right? This all happened to the West Indians because this was prophecy that would come upon them that Moses told us, right? And that prophecy is here. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And Yahweh, well, actually, let's get to 15 because you need to understand why this curse came upon us. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, thy power to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And if you want Akim, you should read through this, and you can see these curses apply only to our people. But let's go down to 68 because this is the key curse that explains why the North Atlantic slave trade happened, and also why the Northern Kingdom came over here to the Americas on ships, which eventually led to their captivity. Right? 68. And the Lord shall Yahweh B'Shem Yahshai shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, and thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. And when it says buy, this word here really means redeem, okay? And when it tells you here, the Lord shall bring you into Egypt, that word there, Egypt, ultimately means slavery, okay? Because remember, we were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord was going to return us back into slavery, okay? And this is where the slavery is being played out here in modern day spiritual Egypt, which is America. That's why there's a pyramid on the dollar. This is why there's a lot of cities in America named after cities in Egypt. This is why the once rulers of Egypt, the Edomites, the so-called Caucasians, are now ruling over America, right? And this is why you see tons and tons of pyramids all over America, along with a bunch of obelisks, right? Because this is spiritual Egypt, as it tells us in the Bible. Now, like I said, the Southern Kingdom got taken over here to the Americas, through slavery. The Northern Kingdom of Israel got taken over here to the Americas by their own accord, but eventually it led to their slavery. Again, fulfilling that prophecy, Deuteronomy 28:68, for both Southern and Northern Kingdom Israelites. But again, this is how, like, our focus on this lesson, the tribe of Benjamin, the West Indians, got over here, right? And that was why that happened to them. Because again, let's read this. It says, because I asked the questions, where did the slaves in the West Indies come from? It's AI Gemini replies, slaves in the West Indies came from Africa and were brought there by Europeans in the mid-16th century, right? And the Europeans really should say Edomites, right? And here, check it out. Look, Angola. Most Africans brought to Brazil came from Angola. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't Barbados. It was Brazil. Okay. And let's see. West Central Africa. In the first 150 years of slave trade, 90% of the enslaved Africans came from the West Central Africa. There you go, right? So West Central Africa is basically on, where is that image? Right here, Congo, right? And up here, where Judah, there's a so-called Negro land, or the Judah tribe, Judah town was up here. Synagogue, Nigeria. These people ended up coming to the Americas. This right here was the tribe of Judah. Down here was mostly Benjamin, and Levi, I think, was basically mingled in amongst everybody. So, but that being said, yeah, that's ultimately where you West Indians come from, man. You guys are the tribe of Benjamin. You guys are the true biblical Hebrew Israelites, okay? And it's time now that you start to come back to your true heritage. I know a lot of you, Akim, who are watching these lessons and watching these videos, you already know this. But this is for anybody new who's coming across this lesson to understand that the West Indians, right, from the Jamaicans, and all these other small tribes here, Martinique, Barbados, and all these countries, that you guys are the tribe of Benjamin, okay, making you, Israelites, right? Now here you kind of see the numbers of the imports of these lands, right? British West Indies, the French West Indies, Dutch West Indies, and the Danish West Indies. This shows you how many, Israelites were taken as slaves and imported. So that shows you how many came over here. So let's go and read this. This is Baruch 4:6. Ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because ye moved God to wrath. Ye were and this here is ultimately why the Lord punished us, right? And namely, in this case, you West Indians, right? The tribe of Benjamin. It says, Baruch 4 and 6, ye were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because ye moved God to wrath. Ye were delivered unto the enemies, for ye provoked him that made you by sacrificing unto devils, and not God. Ye have forgotten the everlasting God that brought you up, and ye have grieved Jerusalem that nursed you. For when she saw the wrath of God come upon you, she said, Hearken, O ye that dwell about Zion, God hath brought upon me great mournings. Right? And that's ultimately talking about how both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom were both warned by the prophets that we had to get right. We had to come back to the Lord. But what happened? We rebelled. We started worshiping these other gods. And we kept breaking the covenant that we made with God. And hence, we kept sinning. And the Lord had no other option but then to punish us according to what he said he would do, right? He had to fulfill his part of the contract, because we broke our part of the contract. And this is why we are, till this day, in 2024, and whenever you watch this, up until, the Lord comes back, we are still in captivity. And there is nothing that we can do to come together and make some sort of union or some sort of economic, group, or go buy like 30 acres of land, or go back to certain countries and try to build up an empire. That shit is gonna fail. And that's because we are currently under a spiritual destruction, right? We're right now under the curses. Now, the curses in a large part are starting to fall off of the Israelites who have woken up and come back to our true heritage and are performing the righteous acts, right? Or should I say rehearsing the law. Because again, we can't keep the law perfectly in this current world. This world is too corrupt and defiled. But the act of us trying to keep the laws, that's, good enough, especially right now that we have grace, that we were given the gift of grace. And this is the way that we show the Lord that we love him and that we're down with him, is by trying to keep the laws to our best of our abilities. And that's ultimately what this talks about. This is Zechariah 10 and 6. And I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph. Remember, Benjamin is one of the sons of Joseph, right? He comes from Joseph's house. And I will bring them again to place them, for I have mercy upon them, and they shall be as though I had not cast them off. For I am Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, their power, and will hear them. And this is why we got to turn back to the Lord. Okay, now this here is talking about the southern kingdom. Down here in verse 7, ultimately it talks about the northern kingdom, Ephraim, too, right? That now is a time that the Lord has come back to us, and now he's paying attention, and he's sending out the angels to go out and check, who in Israel, us, the people, not the place, the people of Jerusalem, who is sighing and crying for all the abominations happening here in America. And this is why we keep telling you, Akim, man, you guys gotta, turn back. You gotta, perform the laws as best as your ability, and you gotta shun away the ways of the world. You gotta, cast it away like a dirty rag, because again, making yourself a friend of the world is gonna make you an enemy to God. And by casting away the world, by shunning it, you're now, showing the Lord that you're for Him. And you're on his side and not on the side of these Edomites, the side of the wicked. This is Lamentations 4:22. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins. So you see, our punishment is coming to an end, Akim. And now, Edom, the so-called Caucasian and Israeli races, which are our adversaries, now it's their time to drink of that cup, to go into slavery, to fall and stumble and not be able to recover. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing these Edomites doing the most because they're going to try to save themselves from what's coming, but that ain't going to work. So Hopefully this video was edifying. Until next time, I want to give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Ruach HaKodesh. Shalom.